Okay. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Class Non-Classics. This is episode number 1668 and Doubleshot number 1562. This one I'm basically discussing a lot of Punisher. First, I'm starting off with issues 6 through 10, well, 6 through 9 actually, of Punisher Volume 9. Now, I'm not discussing issue 10 because I've technically talked about this issue before. It's part of the Omega Directive. It's a 3-part crossover between Punisher, Daredevil, and Amazing Spider-Man. And this is all over a piece of technology Fantastic Four that has a database of criminals. And that's basically that crossover there. Yes, in the case of issues 6 to 9, basically we get more into exchange. That's the main villains of this run. And they were here for pretty much the entire run. And Punisher is like slowly killing more people of this particular group. And of course starting to work with Sergeant Ives, who is a new female Punisher, who is, by the way, the second one ever introduced in Marvel Comics. And that's all that literally happens here. And we're gearing toward the very end of this run, which leads me into these issues here. Issues 11 to 16. By the way, everything here is written by Greg Rucka. Now, as mentioned, I read up online, apparently there are 2 artists for these issues. We have, find the page here. You have 2 artists, Matthew Southwark and Matthew Clark. Oh, by the way, at the end of issue 6, that's when Punisher meets up with Rachel Ives and kind of begins their partnership that will last for pretty much this whole run. Now, it is mentioned on here that the Punisher scenes are drawn by, Matthew Stallworth, while Matthew Clark draws all the scenes for, of course, for Rachel Ives. Yeah, and also Punisher is sporting an eye patch. An eye patch you would have for pretty much the rest of this run. Because next time it shows up, his eye's perfectly fine. Yep. So yeah, now we're getting toward the very end of this run. This, of course, is Volume 3. We have the Punisher and Rachel Ives going after the exchange. And she ends up also accidentally killing an officer in NYPD, which caused her to go on the run, which leads to the events of Punisher War Zone, which I'll get to in a minute. Also in here, throughout these issues, Nora Winters is working with a detective. Also, believe it or not, Phil Urich is in these issues. Yes, Phil Urich. As in the nephew of Ben Urich, and also at this point in time, he is he's Hobgoblin. Yeah, he's the current Hobgoblin at this point. This is before the whole thing with the whole Goblin Nation stuff, where he's made to like a whatever basically Nornod's turned into. Yep. And basically the end of here sets up the events of War Zone. And of course, well, at the end of this, basically at this book here, Rachel and Punisher go separate ways. But then that leads into the events of Punisher War Zone. Which, this particular miniseries, well, the best way to describe this miniseries is the Punisher versus the Avengers. And because of the attack with the exchange, Spider-Man's like, I've had enough. So basically he tries to get the Avengers to help him. And here's the thing. The Avengers want nothing to do with the Punisher. Not at all. Now, here's a little fun fact for you. This is the first... Now, some of the Avengers, like Captain America, for example, this is the first time he's actually appeared in a Punisher comic book since the Civil War 1 tie-in to this point. Thor, as far as I can tell, I don't think he's ever really appeared in the pages of Punisher. No, not that I can think of. We also have Black Widow, who has appeared in the pages of Punisher before, along with, of course, Spider-Man, obviously. So, Iron Man, who, as far as I can tell, I don't think he's ever actually appeared in the pages of Punisher 4. And basically, people who come for this Avengers meeting at Avengers Tower, mind you, is Iron Man, Thor, Steve Rogers, Black Widow, and Wolverine. And apparently that even the Avengers want nothing to do with this at all. Until Sarah points out mass murder, and then Steve Rogers basically is the one who agrees to do this. So they all go out, they got the Punisher. And Punisher, one of his many, many armories he's got. So basically he takes the weapons out of, takes the weapons out and then he destroys the damn thing. That's the end of the first issue. And throughout this miniseries, he's tried to avoid the Avengers. Like one issue he takes on Thor. This is actually the first time he's ever actually met Thor that I could think of, because now Punisher has met Cap before, and Spider-Man. Wolverine, he's met many times. I think prior to this book, I think the last officially Wolverine appeared in a Punisher comic was in Punisher Volume 5, a volume that was not counted part of the numbering when this series restored to triple digit numbering in 2017. Yeah, and really not really good story arc. Black Widow, she would appear after this in the Anderson run, but prior to this, I think she may have appeared in. Actually, I don't remember when she appeared in the book before. But in the case of Thor's the only one who's never met Punisher before. I'm thinking, really? Thor basically is like around over a decade longer Punisher, and these two have never come to each other before. Cap has encountered Punisher many times over the years. The first time they encountered each other was when Punisher guest starred an issue of Captain America back in the 70s. It was during that period of time prior to the Punisher getting an ongoing series back in the 1980s. And, of course, Punisher's avoiding the Avengers this whole mini-series. And eventually, of course, Rachel gets away. Before she's briefly arrested by the police for killing a police officer and getting a death penalty. But she's free with Wolverine, and Punisher stays behind in jail at this place called The Bone. This underground prison where he's like, oh, you won't touch anyone again. Oh, boy. You want to know what happens after this miniseries wraps up? His next publication appearance is when he shows up in Thunderbolts. And he's out of jail. No, seriously. Next time he shows up is in Thunderbolts. For some strange reason, Daniel Wynn ignores his miniseries. Like, oh, Punisher's this place called The Bone. And he's out again. No explanation for this at all. No, seriously, there is nothing. By the way, this is the third volume for Wars, because the previous one basically was mostly a follow-up to Punisher Volume 5. The 5-4. That's about what it was. It was basically a plot threads from that. But yeah, this is the way you end Greg Rucka's run for Punisher. And the main series actually is pretty good. The problem is basically is ignored. No, seriously, it is pretty much ignored. Yes. Punisher, this whole miniseries. But in case this run overall, my final thoughts on this run, it's a pretty good run. I'd say the regular issues of Punisher are actually pretty good. It does lead to something, and of course leads to this very miniseries. Now, I have no idea why this run had to end after only 16 issues. It's one of the more shorter runs Punisher that's been to date. Yes. You might be curious though, like, excuse me, is there one Punisher that's actually shorter, that's actually same like this one? Yes. It was actually the most recent Punisher. The last one ended about a little over 2 years ago. When it ended. Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah, that was in fact pretty much like the next volume they actually had. That was like 3 volumes after this. It was actually 3 volumes after this one. Yep. But what happened to Punisher after this? Well, he popped up with Thunderbolts after this, had a 2-issue miniseries, and then eventually he also had another ongoing series about 2 years after this book wrapped up with the Nathaniel Emerson, which actually was really good. Had the Rachel Eyes popped up for a couple issues for that one. And then Secret Wars happened, and then Becky Cohen had her run for the book, which had the shortest volume to date at 14 issues. Yeah, I believe it was like 14 issues, not mistaken. Yes, I believe it was like 14 issues. No, it was 17 issues. My mistake. It was slightly longer than I thought it was. That was 15 issues. No, it was actually 17. Which makes that one slightly longer than this one and the volume that came after it. Yep. But yeah, not much else to say about Punisher. Well, in the case of Rucka's run itself, it was really good. My biggest highlight of the book, of this run, was getting rid of the Red Vulture, who was the only character outside of the book characters in this book who got killed off. Yeah, actually, scratch it. He did kill off the Black Talon. Yep, he killed off Black Talon. Yeah, as of which one? Well, it definitely wasn't the original one. No. There was one killed by the Punisher. Let's see. It's definitely not that one. No. It's not that one. It's probably... Well, he apparently killed off the start of this book here, and then he somehow came back for no explanation. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird though. Punisher kills him off, and then he comes back here. It comes back in another book, comes back in Secret Avengers of all things. Then Nipple vs. Thanos, Illuminati, and a few other books. His last book was actually Symbiote Spider-Man Crossroads. Yep. But in my case, my final thoughts of Rucka's run. Interesting run. Do not know why it ended for. It just kind of weird. I mean, this book came out just after Recommender wrapped up his run for the book. Yeah, it wasn't that long of a run. Yeah, it wasn't. I thought it was kind of weird. As far as I can tell, there's, like I said, no particular reason why it ended for. It lasted just for a little over a year, at best. Started in August 2011, and it wrapped up in September 2012. And then you had the Punisher Warzone miniseries. Yep, which was launched I think the following month, and I think the final issue came out in 2013. Yeah, it was the start of 2013, and then pretty much you had the next volume come out I think it was just 1 year later. Yeah, it was 1 year later. So it's between this run and the next one, basically you just had one miniseries, a 2-issue miniseries. Because we gotta do something Punisher. Despite the fact he's appearing in Thunderbolts at this point. But yeah. Not much else to say here. The trade itself, Punisher by Great Rucka Volume 3. Give that a 9 out of 10. Pretty good book. Okay, so that's it, particular review, and that's going to be it for videos tonight. I was planning to do Attack on Titan, but it's late now. I'll do it tomorrow. So I'm going to do about a couple comic corners tomorrow and Attack on Titan. Okay, next video. Bye.